Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Wherever You Go podcast. My name is Sam Bauer, and I am the moderator and host of this podcast. And I'm super excited that you're here and that you've been listening and that you're just choosing your time to spend listening to some of the information that I'm sharing and the stories that I'm sharing. I hope that some of it's touched your heart and helping you kind of navigate these waters of being a Christian and an entrepreneur or a business owner or just a career person or a stay-at-home mom, whatever you do. It's just, life is not easy all the time. And so I'm hoping that I'm an encouragement and that the things that I share are helping you to kind of direct your steps and give you some things to pray about anyway. So if you do enjoy this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you share it with a friend or post it on your social media or comment is huge to help get like more people to see it that aren't my warm network on the Apple Apple podcast. So comment, like, share if you're so called to do so, if it's in your heart. And if not, that's okay too. I appreciate you listening either way. So today I want to this is probably going to be a quick one, but I wanted to talk a little bit about God's timing because you guys, I had a week last week where I had moments where I was like feeling bad for myself because just nothing was going as planned. So my kids ended up having three 2-hour delays last week. So that pushes things all around because I have to drop them off at school at 10:10 instead of 8:10, which maybe doesn't sound like a huge deal, but when you business hours, and I'm sure a lot of people were struck by that with the weather being crazy, you just never know what's going to happen. And then on Wednesday, I was hosting an event with some of my referral partners and I was in charge of the food and I'd been depending on a certain place where I generally always get the food to provide the food, and it didn't work out. And so I was like, oh my gosh, at the last minute, like literally they let me know the night before that I couldn't get the food at the time that I needed to get it. And so I was trying to like scurry around and figure out food for this event. And the event happened luckily on a day that there was not a 2-hour delay because that really would have been a tricky. However, I got back into the office after that event and I've been, really busy. So being out of the office has been a struggle for me anyway. I get back into the office in like 10 minutes, my mom calls and her battery died in her car and she had my kids. She was picking them up from school that day and supposed to take my son to gymnastics at 4:30, which I struggle to do because of my business. And so I had to, drop what I was doing, go get them, help her try to jump her battery, which we failed. And my dad still is teasing me that I don't know how to jump a battery, but whatever. I think we put it on right. It just didn't, we didn't give it enough juice. So anyway, that was my week, all week long. And then things were going like wonky. I swear all of my carriers were sending out like their underwriting notifications last week. So I had like a bunch of different clients calling me because they were being asked to make repairs to their home in order to not cancel their insurance. And just like a couple really problematic things, which also resulted me in being on hold with these carriers for much longer than I normally do. It just felt a very unproductive week. And at the end of the week, I was kind of feeling sorry for myself. I had this week planned. I've been having really great sales weeks. Everything's been going really smooth this year so far. And then this week happened and everything got out of whack. And I know I'm complaining about the littlest things because many of you have sick family members and you're quarantining and way bigger things than 2-hour delays and the restaurant not providing the food on time. And, the shifts that I had to make last week, not a big deal in the grand scheme of life. But for me, it felt like, oh my gosh, I need to be getting my work done. And my husband reminded me more than once during the week, Sam, you are so blessed that you're able to just get up and go. You can go get the kids and you can help your mom and you can, shift things around when they're not going right. You have this business that allows you to be able to do those things. And it really made me stop and think man, I'm being a big baby right now. And I really do need to be grateful for the fact that I spend extra time with my kids. I was able to adjust my schedule in order to do what I needed to do. You know, we're Sam's Club members and we're luckily the Plus members. So I was able to get in there early the day of that event. I grabbed a bunch of meat and cheese and bread, and people were really happy with their sandwich station that they had at the event. So like, it all worked out. I still have some loose ends that I need to get done this week, but it's a new week and it's going to be great. But this morning when I was doing my Bible study, it was as though God was telling me, hey, Sam, I know last week was super frustrating, but I needed to remind you that things are going to happen in my timing, not yours. And you need to be happy where you're at, because where you are at is where I need you to be right now. And I know better than you do. And is a very humbling feeling. I actually cried when I was praying for forgiveness for my lack of trust and my lack of, you know, letting go of things, and knowing that like all of that happened for a reason. I don't know what it is, and I may never know what it is. But I had a week last week like that for a reason, and it's to serve God's purpose in one way or the other. So I just kind of wanted to share that with you all, because I know sometimes like I always share like unicorns and rainbows and everything's great. And my social media looks like everything runs perfectly all the time, but it doesn't. Like, and I don't think it works perfectly for any of us. You know, we're all out there doing our best, trying to, you know, serve our God and our family and our husband, our spouse, and our, and so on top of it, Rob had a cold, which we know how that goes sometimes. So hopefully he'll be feeling better soon. But anyway, through that in there. And then to also like be a good business owner, right? I have clients, I have thousands of clients who depend on me to answer the phone, call them back, help advise them, and, you know, get answers for them. And so, it sometimes can be overwhelming, and sometimes, you know, God throws you some screwballs. And I really do think that he threw those at me last week, just as a reminder that his timing is perfect. Mine is not. And I need to trust him and trust that he knows what's best for me, even when it feels like, you know, I didn't lose much by being out of the office a couple extra hours or having to take that. I mean, my school is 20 minutes away, or 10 minutes. So it's 10 minutes there, 10 minutes back. It's 25 minutes total that impacted, but I did have to shift around a bunch of meetings that I wanted to go to and things like that. So again, there's a reason I didn't go to those meetings. There's a reason God thought I didn't need to be there. Or maybe there was something that was going to happen that it was important that I wasn't. So I just think keeping that in mind is super important. And it started making me think about like my journey and my career, because every time I've needed God, every time I've needed a change, every time I felt like I can't do this anymore, and I've fallen down on the ground and I've got on my knees and prayed, that's when something shifts. It's when I hand it over to God. It's when I say, God, I'm trying to do this my way and it's not working out. So I need your help. And like, we should live like that all the time, right? And that was my reminder last week, is like, stop trying to do it yourself. I am God. I am with you. I'm in control of how things happen and when they happen. You know, you can make your plans and set your goals, and that's great, Sam. But if you're not trusting my timing, it's not going to work out. So I feel like almost it was like one of those, like maybe a test for me, or just one of those reminders, or that sandpapering down of me of let go, trust that God's timing is perfect, and don't get into the fury or the, oh my gosh, we got to go faster, we got to move things around, or like, it's not going to work out if I'm not there on time, or whatever it is, you know, whatever that panic, if I don't call it, like my big thing is calling people back. If I don't call my clients back within 24 hours, I have extreme anxiety, because I feel like that's not acceptable. And so I had a few last week that I had to text or email and just say, hey, I'm so sorry this happened. Can I call you tomorrow? And I had to do it like more than once because things kept shifting. And so it was like 3 days, you know, and everybody was super gracious and super understanding. It wasn't like I just didn't call. I let people know, but like, again, God's going to have you call them when it's right. And he's going to have the things fall into place when it's right. And so it's a practice, it's an ongoing practice, especially for me, and I'm sure for any parent or business owner, because we're a little bit, I don't want to say high strung, but maybe like we're more controlling than other people. So we really, really need to work on making sure we're handing things over to God and also trusting him and not just saying like, God, you're in control and I love you. Thank you. But actually when it happens, when he throws you off course or something doesn't go as planned, not panicking, not getting in a bad mood, not yelling at your kids or making them feel bad for having a 2-hour delay when it's no control of theirs. Some of the things that maybe happened in my household last week. And just, rolling with it and doing our best to like, all right, God, I'm going to pivot. And I know it's going to work out in your timing. So like I said, short and sweet today. But as you're going through your journey and whether it's like a long period of that where you feel like nothing's going your way, or if it's a short period, like my week last week, and I'm determined this week, I already prayed about it. I asked God's forgiveness. I told him I'm ready for his blessings this week. And I'm also ready to learn from anything that he throws my way that's maybe not in my plans. I'm going to react and respond a lot better than I did last week. And that is my prayer for you as well. It's a crazy time. There's a lot of things going on out there. It seems like there's so many more events and activities and stuff now than there were, right? Because of COVID, but it just feels like almost it's more than it was before, or maybe we just got used to not having a lot of stuff. And so now that there is, it seems like there's more. I just wanted to share some Bible verses with you about trusting God and God's timing and just some like fun facts too, right? Sometimes we're afraid that God's timing is going to mess up our plans, right? Or maybe I'm not going to hit my goal this month because I had to do all this 2-hour delays, battery jumping, running to Sam's Clubs, like all this stuff. Just a reminder that in the Bible, it says, fear not 365 times. 365 times, that's once per day, right? That the Bible says, fear not, because God's in control, man. We got nothing to fear. 11 times in the Bible, it says to be strong and courageous. And they are all found in the Old Testament, shockingly, or surprisingly, I guess. And 3 times in Joshua. And so who doesn't want to be like Joshua, man? That guy, God said go, and he just went. Didn't ask questions. He learned from Moses, right? I talked about Moses a few weeks ago, that when God came to him and told him he had a plan for him, he was like, I think you got the wrong guy, God. And he constantly questioned God, and he constantly, didn't quite follow what God was saying. And he didn't make it to promised land, right? Joshua did. Joshua took them. He learned. And when God told Joshua to go across the Jordan River, Joshua didn't stand there and get nervous and pray and have to like part the water before the people passed, where Moses did, right? So Moses, when they got to the Red Sea, Moses prayed and God was like, dude, I told you to do this. Put out your staff. It's going to clear a path. You guys can walk across it on the dry land. So Moses had to see that dry land before he stepped into the sea. And then all the people, they saw it. And the Israelites were, they had a lot of doubts, and they had a lot of like complaining, and they had a lot of like sandpapering, like God sandpapered me last week, right? That I was like one of them, and he is sandpapering me. And then, when Joshua came along and they were crossing the Jordan, he didn't stop. He put his foot in the wet water and it parted. So he didn't have to stand there and put out the staff. He didn't have to see the dry path before he stepped into it. He saw a river and he knew God was with him, and he stepped. So that's what we want to be like, right? We want to be like Joshua. And it wasn't that he wasn't afraid, clearly, because God spoke to him 3 times in Joshua and told him to be strong and courageous, be strong and courageous, be strong and courageous. Something doesn't go your way. I'm not saying like be strong, like something doesn't go your way. Be strong and courageous enough to know that like, that's God. That's not me. That's God. I'm doing this for a reason, and he's going to make it work out because he's a good God. I'm going to go do what he's calling me to do instead of resisting it. Because I don't have to see the path before I'm going to put my foot in to the river and go. So anyway, that was kind of a rabbit hole. So sorry about that. But and then the other one is that God says to trust him 134 times in the Bible. 134 times he reminds us to trust him. So that's pretty, to me, that's, God doesn't mention things 134 times for us to take it lightly. He wants us to trust him. He wants us to fear not. He wants us to be strong and courageous. And so sometimes we feel like we trust him until we get into a week like that or a month like that. Everybody's getting sick. It's frustrating. It can be discouraging. God wants us to trust him, and he wants us to fear not, and he wants us to be strong and courageous. So whatever you're going through right now, whatever hard time you're having, or whatever timing isn't working out for you, just remember those things, like trust God, be strong and courageous, and fear not. Our God is a big, awesome, amazing God. He's ordained your life. He's already got every single little nook and cranny planned out for you. Just have to keep leaning into it and keep trusting him. And when something maybe doesn't go the way you think it should, you have to trust that that's God. And so just keep on trucking. All right. Dun, dun, dun. So here's a good one. Matthew. I love the book of Matthew. He's got so much good nuggets in there. 6:25. Therefore, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? So don't be anxious, you guys. Life is more than whatever it is that you're striving for. We need to be striving to glorify God, and he is the bread of life, right? And he can clothe us in strength and courage and love. My favorite verse, guys, maybe I should have named this podcast after this one, because I say it all the time, but Romans 8:28. And we know, for those who love God, all things work together for the good for those who are called according to his purpose. We know that all things work together for the good, right? So why, when things don't go our way or we get into a rut, why do we forget that? Because we're human. That's why, if you want to know the answer. But keeping that verse, like, to me, like, at the end of the day, being a human, having those faults, having days like I had last week, a week like I had last week, some of you months, 2 years ago, I would have said I had like a good month and a half of like, what the heck, God, you're doing? Because this is not fun, and it hurts, and it's painful, and like, it's definitely not going the way I planned it. Remembering this verse, God works all things together for our good, for those who are called according to his purpose. So his purpose, not our purpose, his purpose. So anyway, those are just a few of my favorite verses that kind of like revolve around God's timing, God's planning. So if anybody out there had a week like I had last week, and you're feeling bad about yourself, or you're, having a pity party like I kind of had for a few minutes before my husband was like, hey, Sam, you're blessed and highly favored. He was like, if that happened to me, he's a truck driver. He's like, I'm in Steubenville, Ohio. Like, there's no way I could get back to help your mom or go get the kids or take them to a 2-hour delay. But you are in a situation where you can do that. So be grateful. So if you're in that spot and you're feeling like maybe sorry for yourself or whatever, just remember, God's plan is better than yours. God is bigger than you. And God's timing is perfect. It is perfect, even when it doesn't seem like it, even when it hurts or is frustrating. Like I told him this morning, like, God, I was so frustrated last week with you. I'm so sorry. Forgive me for my frustration, and forgive me for trying to control time, because I keep doing it, even though I talk about this all the time. I'm not Father Time, God is, and he's going to control what we do. So anyway, I'm going to end today with Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go.